In moments when life comes close to an end, many people report extraordinary experiences that defy logic and explanation. These moments, often described as near-death experiences, are marked by profound realizations and visions that leave an everlasting impact. Among these stories, some stand out because of the weight of the message they carry for humanity. One such story is about a man named David, who faced death but returned with a revelation so powerful that it changed his perspective forever. David's story begins like many others, unexpectedly. An event led him to the brink of death, where he experienced something beyond what words can fully describe. In his moment of near death, David encountered Jesus and was shown a vision that left him shaken. This vision was not just personal, but felt like a glimpse into something larger, a warning or a message meant for the world. What he saw was both tragic and filled with meaning, a disaster in 2025, similar in its gravity to the events of September 11th. The insights he brought back from this experience carry a depth that makes us pause and reflect on our choices and the world we live in today. Before this life-changing event, David lived an ordinary life, unaware of what was about to unfold. Like many, he was caught up in the routine of everyday living, navigating challenges and responsibilities. There was nothing unusual about his day-to-day existence, and he never anticipated that something extraordinary would interrupt his path. David didn't consider himself particularly spiritual or deeply reflective. He was simply focused on the practicalities of life, like anyone else. But it is often during these moments of routine when the unexpected occurs. A sudden and unforeseen event caused his life to come to a halt. It wasn't something he had prepared for or even thought possible. This moment of crisis led to an experience that would forever redefine how he saw the world, his priorities, and his purpose. When the event happened, David was struck by an overwhelming silence. It wasn't the kind of silence that comes with calm, but one that feels like the world itself has stopped. In this state, he felt himself drifting away, no longer tethered to the physical reality he had known. It was here that his extraordinary experience began. What started as an ordinary day turned into a moment that would carry a profound message for humanity. David found himself caught in an unexpected situation that altered the course of his life. What seemed like a normal moment quickly turned into something unimaginable. In the midst of this, he felt his body weakening and everything around him faded. Time seemed to slow and the physical world disappeared. This was not the end he had imagined, yet it came with a sense of clarity and awareness he had never experienced before. As his connection to the physical world diminished, David felt a pull towards something unfamiliar yet strangely peaceful. He was no longer surrounded by the chaos of the moment, but instead entered an expanse that felt boundless. This was not a dream or a hallucination. It was real in a way that transcended the physical. He could feel a profound sense of presence, one that was unlike anything he had ever known. It was in this state that he began to see and understand things with a clarity that was beyond what his human mind had ever grasped. He felt a sense of being guided, though he did not fully understand what was happening or why it was happening to him. All he knew was that he was no longer confined to his body, and something far greater was at work. In the midst of this extraordinary state, David encountered a presence that was unmistakable. Standing before him was Jesus, not as a figure of distant reverence, but as a living presence that radiated peace and love. There were no words initially, only a sense of understanding that filled him completely. David felt seen, not in the way people see one another, but in a way that pierced through everything superficial and reached the core of his being. Jesus did not speak in riddles, or offer explanations that were difficult to comprehend. Instead, there was a directness to his presence, as if every question David had ever asked was answered in that moment without words. It was as if time itself stood still, allowing this connection to exist in its purest form. Then Jesus began to show him something. It was not a mere vision, but an experience that felt as real as anything David had ever lived through. He saw events unfolding that were unlike anything he could have imagined. Among them was a disaster so vast in scale and impact that it reminded him of the tragedy of September 11th. The images were vivid and clear, filled with the pain and suffering of countless people. This was not just a glimpse into the future, but a call to understand the consequences of human choices. Jesus' presence provided David with more than just a warning. It was a message of hope, urging him to bring back what he had seen and share it with those who would listen. There was no fear in Jesus' voice, only a deep compassion for the world and a desire to guide humanity toward change. David understood that what he had seen was not inevitable, but a possibility, one that could be altered through awareness and action. In the presence of Jesus, David was shown a scene unlike anything he had ever imagined. It began with a feeling of urgency, followed by images of a world that seemed familiar yet profoundly changed. He saw towering buildings reduced to rubble, smoke rising into the sky, and people running in fear and confusion. The devastation mirrored the events of September 11th in its intensity, but the scope of the destruction was even greater. It was clear that what he was witnessing was not merely a vision of chaos, but a warning about the potential future. The vision was not meant to instill fear, but to convey the weight of human choices. David felt that this disaster represented more than just physical destruction. It was a reflection of the disconnect, the division, and the lack of understanding among people. He understood that the events he was witnessing were the result of actions left unchecked, decisions made without consideration for their long-term consequences. What struck David most was not just the scale of the tragedy, but the human suffering it caused. He could feel the pain, the despair, and the overwhelming sense of loss. Yet, amidst the devastation, there was also a sense of potential, a possibility for change if people chose to act differently. The vision carried a dual message, one of caution and one of hope. It was a reminder that the future is shaped by the actions of the present. After the vision, Jesus communicated a message that was clear and direct. He explained that what David had seen was not set in stone, but a possibility that could be avoided if humanity chose to turn toward love, understanding, and unity. The disaster was not meant to be a punishment, but a wake-up call, a reminder of the importance of living with intention and care for one another. Jesus emphasized the need for people to reconnect with their purpose and their higher values. He spoke of the importance of faith, compassion, and mutual respect. David understood that the vision was not just about what could go wrong, but about the opportunity to make things right. The message was a call to action, urging people to reflect on their choices and align them with the greater good. David also felt that Jesus was reminding him, and through him, the world, of the strength that lies within each person to make a difference. Whether through small acts of kindness or larger efforts to bring about change, every action matters. The message was not about fear, but about the power of hope and the possibility of a better future if people choose to act with intention and care. After the vision ended, David felt himself being pulled back toward the physical world. It was not a sudden or jarring shift, but a gradual realization that he was returning to his body. As the sense of peace and clarity faded, the weight of the vision he had witnessed remained heavy in his heart. He understood that he had been given a responsibility to carry this message back to the world. When David opened his eyes, he was filled with a mixture of emotions. There was a sense of gratitude for being alive, but also a deep awareness of the significance of what he had seen. The experience had left him with questions and a sense of urgency to share the insights he had received. While he felt the limitations of being back in his physical body, he knew that what he had witnessed was too important to keep to himself. David noticed subtle changes in himself almost immediately. His priorities shifted, and he found himself looking at the world with a new perspective. It was no longer just about his personal life. The vision had given him a broader sense of purpose. He felt compelled to share the message, not to create fear, but to inspire hope and action. David's life was no longer the same after his return. The vision of the disaster and the message from Jesus stayed with him, guiding his thoughts and decisions. He found himself reflecting on the ways people interact with each other, the choices they make, and the values they hold. Every action now seemed to carry more meaning, as he understood how small decisions could lead to larger consequences. He began to share what he had seen, speaking to others about the importance of kindness, understanding, and awareness. While not everyone accepted or understood his story, David remained steadfast. He focused on conveying the urgency of the message and the hope that change was possible. His words were not about blame, but about taking responsibility for the future. David also found himself drawn to a more spiritual way of living. The experience had strengthened his faith and given him a sense of connection to something greater than himself. He realized that while the vision was profound, it was the actions people take in their daily lives that truly matter. By living with intention and encouraging others to do the same, David felt he was honoring the message he had been given. The vision David witnessed was more than a warning. It carried a deeper meaning about the state of the world and the choices people make every day. He understood that the disaster symbolized the consequences of division, indifference, and the neglect of moral and ethical values. The imagery of destruction and suffering was not merely about physical events, but also about the spiritual and emotional toll that humanity's actions could bring. David realized that the vision was a call to reassess the direction society was heading. It highlighted how small decisions could collectively lead to significant outcomes, whether positive or negative. He reflected on the ways individuals could contribute to either peace or conflict through their actions, words, and attitudes. The message from Jesus underscored the importance of unity and the need to prioritize compassion over personal gain. This understanding brought clarity to David's purpose. He saw the vision as an invitation for people to reflect on their lives, reconsider their priorities, and choose actions that build rather than destroy. The implications were clear. Change must begin with each individual. The vision was not about fear, but about awakening to the power of choices and the possibility of creating a better future. David felt compelled to share a message of hope based on what he had seen and understood. The vision, though filled with images of destruction, carried a promise that such events could be prevented. Jesus' words were not about despair, but about the potential for humanity to rise above its differences and work toward a common good. He urged others to focus on kindness, understanding, and forgiveness in their daily lives. These were not grand gestures, but small, meaningful actions that could ripple outward to create significant change. David emphasized that the vision was a reminder of humanity's interconnectedness and the power of collective effort to bring about a more peaceful and harmonious world. David's message was simple yet profound. The future is not fixed, and everyone has the ability to contribute to shaping it. By choosing love over hate, understanding over judgment, and hope over fear, people could create a world where such disasters no longer had the chance to manifest. His words were a call to take responsibility for the present to ensure a better future for all.